the frontal lobe of the brain of the addict is compromised, broken, a little off. And why is that? So we have this risk-reward center that tends to be defective in our active addiction, right? While we are continuing the use of our substance, of our gambling, of our sex addiction, of our whatever it is, right? And as long as our participation in our destructive behavior is consistent, the risk-reward center of our brain remains flawed or faulty. And so what does that mean? Well, risk-reward centers of the brain show you an element of consequence and action, right? So what we do as addicts is we weigh the feeling or the sensation of whatever the participation of our drug of choice is over the potential of the negative aspects or the backlash of what this will do in our lives. And it can be healed, okay? So there is some brain science that goes along with this. There are studies that have been done that show that the brain fires in a certain way, and within the brain of people who struggle with addiction, there is some sort of missing coinciding areas, right? And so this was my experience. You know what you should do, you know how you should act, you know what you shouldn't do, but yet there is this reward center in the brain that overrides reason and logic and sort of almost compels me or compels you to do this thing that is just wrecking your life. Now, here it is, right? This is one of the things about human beings that's different than animals. We are cognitive thinkers, which means we are able to think about our thinking. So we don't just act on impulse. We're able to think about what it is that's going on in our head and weigh the balance of things. Now, it's a bit damaged in some areas. I get that with people who have been addicts for a really long time or have participated in addiction, to the point where their brain just seems to go on autopilot. But here's the thing. That is why in almost every program, it doesn't matter if it's religious-based, if it's a 12-step program, every single program that's out there has a model of accountability. And what does that mean? So within Christian circles, you'll call it discipleship. Within 12-step programs, you call that sponsorship. It's just a form of accountability because in the beginning phases, while we're trying to get well from our sickness, we're trying to use a brain to think our way out of the same stuff with the same brain that got us into the stuff. And so having some accountability in the beginning phases, actually throughout all of phases, but certainly in the beginning phases, is key to success. Now, there will come times after you've been sober for a while that you are able to go and do things that you once thought you wouldn't be able to do. I remember when I was 2 years sober and I was invited to a wedding, right? I had to check in with my sponsor because I knew that there was going to be alcohol there and I knew there would probably be some other things there just because I knew the people who were throwing the wedding, right? And what they did and what they were about. But I told on myself because my thinking is what gets me into the jam, right? If I tell myself, oh, I'm going to be fine, I've been sober 2 years, it'll be different. But somewhere in the back of my mind, there is this thought that, no one would know, or I could just have one. I got to tell on myself. And I've got to be able to be accountable to the people that love me and care for me and say to them, yeah, man, I had this weird thought. Like, I'm at a wedding, like, I could just cheers, and have one. But that sick thought in and of itself doesn't play it out to the very end. And so it's really important for people like us who struggle with addiction that we take our thinking and we play things out to the end, that we look at the possibilities, right? The possibilities of whatever the situation is that's arriving in our lives that has a potential to possibly lead us back down into this crappy area that's been plaguing us for as long as it has been. So you have to think of this, right? Is there going to be drinking at the event, right? Are people going to be gambling? Maybe gambling's your issue, right? Maybe there's, inappropriate sexual activity, or there's people there that are like pursuing that type of thing, and there's going to be some whatever, right? Like, you don't take somebody struggling with gambling and take them to a casino. You don't take a sex addict and take them to a strip club. You don't take an alcoholic and you take them to a bar, right? Now, that doesn't mean that at some point down the line, an alcoholic can't go into a setting where people are drinking and be completely fine. I do it now all the time, literally. Like, I have no problem being around other people who are drinking, right? I just know for me, 100%, it isn't my life. I can't do it. I don't even want to do it, right? My relationship with God is so awesome. Why would I want to screw that up? Now, since I, got sober and I told on myself with a sponsor and got that accountability, I have been able to do just about everything. I went on a cruise. Well, guess what? On a cruise, they are literally boats full of alcohol, and there's other fun stuff that happens on cruises. Don't get me wrong, but they're boats with just alcohol everywhere. So I decided in advance, if I was going to go on this cruise, I needed to find out, were there any meetings on the cruise? Who could I be able to contact? Is there going to be Wi-Fi, right? And I reached out to people that I knew that were holding me accountable. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go do this thing, or should I do this thing? And of course, I felt okay at this point. And I went and did the thing, right? And again, little successes lead me to the conclusion that, you know what? My brain is now getting better. At this point, right, 14 years in, I don't need to check in the same way, but that doesn't mean that I'm not accountable. It doesn't mean that I'm not accountable to my wife. It doesn't mean that I'm not accountable to my pastor. It doesn't mean I'm not accountable to my leadership structure or the people that I have in my life that are there for, to help these areas, right? So the thing is, like, accountability. And I know right now, especially through what's going on in our culture with COVID and just everything, it makes it more difficult. I totally get that. But we have a decider, right? This is the last little thing I'm going to say. We have a decider, and we can make a decision in our decider with what we are going to do and what we aren't going to do. And we need to do this with accountability, and we need to do this for the betterment of who we want to be, not who we are currently struggling to be or with or are. Anyway, God bless you guys. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, there's a like button right there. Hit like on the right-hand side in the middle, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Anyway, God bless you guys. Hope these are helping you. We'll do this again.